Testing. Pop. All right, there we go. Hello, and how good is these? Nothing. Hello, and welcome back to a Squirrel Plays. Today we're going to be talking about introducing characters. That's right, friend or foe, they all need a snazzy introduction. Or do they? Yes, they do, but the degree of snazzy depends on the importance of said character. A character that's critical to the plot of the story probably needs a bit more impact in his introduction than the shopkeeper next door. But that's not to say you should neglect that guy either. There's lots of ways to introduce a character and lots of ways to do it well, but for the sake of keeping this video a decent length, I'm just going to look at one good example and one bad example. After each of those, we'll see how we can use that in a TTRPG setting to better introduce a character instead of just saying, this is Sword Guy, Savior of Kittens and Destroyer of Evil. I wanted to use more examples and talk about utilizing maps in your environment and how that can really help with an introduction, among some other things, but the script just got too darn long and I had to start cutting it all out if I wanted to get the video done in time. Who knows, maybe this one deserves a part 2 or 3. That said, let's get into it. Let's start by looking at the good example first, and then we'll get into the bad one and see what we can learn from both of those along the way. And what better way to start than by looking at my favorite movie of all time? That's right, the 1986 Transformers movie. I realized when working on the script that I need to just make an entire video about that movie. Despite it being a 90-minute toy commercial, there is a lot you can learn from it from a writing perspective. But anyway, I already used Megatron in my video about villains, so I'll refrain from repeating myself. If you want, you can watch that video and see what I had to say there. Of course, I would appreciate it if you watched the whole thing, but if you just want that specific part, you can start here. Megatron had a fantastic introduction, and we saw right away just how scary he was. Remember, a good introduction doesn't mean you have to like the character. It's just meant to show you who they are. That means in some cases, a good introduction means you will absolutely hate the character. But on the other side of the coin, we have Optimus Prime, and who doesn't love that big red truck? Granted, most people already knew who Optimus was when this movie came out, but even if you didn't, you still got a good introduction to him. Right away, we see him leading his soldiers and giving orders. It's very clear that he is the one in charge. Ironhide here wants to start busting Deceptichops, but Optimus first calmly explains why that's a poor idea, then more firmly reinstates his order.
Listen, Ironhide, we don't have enough Energon cubes to power a full-scale assault. Ready the shuttle for launch.
In just a few short seconds, we learn that Optimus is the leader. He listens to his soldiers and lets them speak, but he will confidently and firmly hold his ground. And then immediately after that, we see Ironhide accept the order. He respects the order and not only doesn't grumble about it, he looks forward to the later steps of the plan where they finally get to bring the fight to Megatron.
Your days are numbered now, Decepticon creeps.
This shows us that Optimus is respected, and again, in just the next few seconds, we see others responding positively to him and his leadership. He's not just their leader, he's a little bit more than that. As the shuttle takes off, he drops the line,
Now, all we need is a little Energon and a lot of luck.
Optimus understands the threat they're up against. He's not arrogant or overly confident in his abilities. He understands that they're outgunned, but despite that, he's still willing to stand up for what's right. Bonus points for also showing that he's not perfect, as he doesn't realize he's being spied on this whole time. Now, if you fast forward just a little bit to his next on-screen appearance, Megatron has made it to Earth and is destroying Autobot City. Optimus shows up, takes charge, uses the Dinobots to take out Devastator, then does this.
Megatron must be stopped, no matter the cost.
No matter the cost, he says, and throws himself at the problem, not his soldiers. His character stays true all the way to the end and is actually what gets him killed. He's afraid to harm his own, and Megatron takes advantage of that. Even while he's dying, he admits that he was nothing more than just a soldier and that he shouldn't be grieved over as he passes on the matrix of leadership. After that and throughout the rest of the movie, we see the giant ripple his death causes in his people because he was so important to them, and I'm not crying, you're crying. It's so sad, man.
god, I'm dead.
To much people's disappointment, Optimus only had a few minutes of screen time in this movie, but even then, we got a terrific look at his character. We know what he was all about, and honestly, a lot of us would probably miss him in a way, even if we didn't know him beforehand. So in Optimus's case, we got an introduction, a single scene, and then an outro, all in just a few short minutes of screen time. And for just a few seconds of your time, you could like and subscribe. All right. So on the TTRPG side of things, this is something you can absolutely do. You could have this entire Optimus arc in a single session. The party could catch word of a village that is in need of assistance from an oncoming raid. When you arrive, you find an elder there giving orders and helping everyone prepare for the attack. The villagers don't have to outright say, "Oh, our elder is wonderful and perfect." No. But since you are a bit more restricted on the storytelling front in a TTRPG, just in the sense you want to allow the players to actually play the game instead of listen to you tell a story all night, you could speed things along by simply describing how eager these people are to follow the elder's orders without question. Even the elder himself could drop a line or two somewhere in there about how much the village and the people mean to him, just to drive the point home a little bit more and quicker. So for his introduction, you could try something like this. A villager points you to another man not far from you. He's kneeled by a woman sitting on a chair with a small child next to him clutching his cloak. You realize the woman's leg is bleeding, and seeing the scared look on the child's face, you can easily deduce that that is her son. The man kneeling by her has a glow in his hand which becomes brighter and causes the woman to wince as the wound in her leg is healed and sealed up. She pauses for a moment before freely moving her leg, barely getting up to her feet before her son wraps himself around her. And from there, you would let the players take over, and there's a couple of things they could get from this. One, we got to see him healing and taking care of someone himself instead of passing that responsibility on. Two, the child is clutching his cloak, which can be taken as a child finding comfort in the elder in his time of distress, and the elder allows it, despite focusing on the wound. In other words, he was helping both of them. There's also something to be said about him helping a woman and child, but that sounds like a great way to start the battle of the sexes, and I don't want to go down that road. Then when the attack comes, you can have the same elder on the front lines with everyone else. Even better if you can get him to take on the BBEG and die in the process like Optimus Prime. Or if you really wanted to traumatize your players, you could have the elder take a bullet from the BBEG or whatever else is flying through there in order to save one of the party members. Nothing like a good bit of guilt to motivate your players, right? And again, you can do all that in one session. It doesn't have to be a big, long, drawn-out thing. You can do that pretty quickly. But what about a bad example? You know Disney's got my back for this one. The Obi-Wan show is full of good examples of what not to do for many things. And honestly, I'm not going to dwell on this one too long, but I do want to use it because I do honestly feel like you need both good and bad examples to learn from. You got to sprinkle a little negativity in there with the positivity to keep things balanced. Also, this isn't the introduction of a single character, but a group of characters. That's right, it's the Saber Copters.
What are you laughing at?
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
I'm going to be honest, I was really hoping they'd actually do that in a live-action show. It would have been the dumbest thing you've ever seen. Would have made the whole thing worth it. Anyway, I am talking about the Inquisitors in the very first episode. Now, these guys are Jedi killers, right? That's what they do. That's their job. So naturally, you'd think they'd be something worth fearing, right? Smart, skilled, powerful. They're hunting and killing Jedis. So something. But that's not what we get. The first thing we get is a silly runway strut, but I'm going to look past that and move on to when they get to the bar. The people are scared, and that's good. It would seem they know who these people are, and as a matter of fact, Q-Ball over here even asks one of them, "Do you know who we are?" And this guy, sweating and nervous, says, "You're Inquisitors." Almost, man. They almost had it. If he had just nodded and was afraid to speak, it would have been so much better. But Disney thought they needed to spell it out for everyone, so the interaction goes as such. "Do you know who we are? You're Inquisitors. Do you know what we do? You hunt Jedi." Absolutely stellar writing. Just spell the whole thing out for us. No questions needed. Now, I like Cue Ball's little monologue about the Jedi, or at least the idea of it, and to be fair, I thought his performance was pretty good too. Wouldn't it have been so much better, though, if Cue Ball just leaned in quietly and asked if the dude knew who they were? The bartender would have nodded, and then Cue Ball could have gone from there to his little monologue. But really, that's neither here nor there, because the real problem is what happens during said monologue. Reva decides to lose her patience and throw a knife at the guy, causing the Jedi hiding in the corner to act and reveal himself. It wasn't Cue Ball that stopped it, meaning he had no idea the knife was coming, which kind of downplays his alleged power level. There's some very half-hearted attempts to stop said Jedi. Reva acts up again and tries to kill him, but Cue Ball stops her, and then the Jedi flees the scene by dropping a couple sticks. Right. And while Hat Man disappears off screen, we see Cue Ball scold Reva in front of everyone. He admits to chasing nothing but scraps because that's all that's left, and reveals that Kenobi is still wanted, which I guess kind of means that it really isn't just scraps that are left. And he also makes her look weak in front of the people that they want to intimidate. This group is completely dysfunctional, and despite the script constantly telling us that they're supposedly dangerous and something to be feared, we're shown over and over and over again throughout the series that they're little more than a few babies fighting over Daddy Vader's attention. It's really weird, man. 3 Jedi hunter-killers had what seems to be an average Jedi cornered, and through mass incompetence allowed him to escape. Imagine, if you will, they had shown up like normal. Reva and Hat Man stood guard at the exit. Cue Ball does his monologue. The Jedi is revealed. Reva and Hat Man use the Force to lock him in place, and Cue Ball calmly walks over and just slices him right in half. After that, they just leave without saying a single word. They came, they got what they wanted, and they left. That would be a lot more intimidating. And you know what? You could even have some Reva and Cue Ball dialogue on the way back to the ship talking about Obi-Wan. But that has nothing to do with TTRPGs. So in the TTRPG world, if you're introducing a group of villains that you want to be intimidating, maybe don't make them look like a bunch of buffoons. You may not want to put your players through an entire monologue, but you could have a group come through while the players are of a low level and have their way, then simply leave. If the players were bold enough or dumb enough to attack the Inquisitors, they could just be squashed down with Force powers. Cue Ball might even get a chuckle out of it and say he's amused with their courage. He might go on about how he's already had his kill for the day and that he's satisfied, meaning you get to live. Or perhaps he decided to remove a limb from one player, and that's how the player got a mechanical arm. Honestly, this scene would be a great way to start an adventure or a whole campaign, because don't all great adventures start in a tavern? The whole campaign could be hunting down the Inquisitors one by one. You experience their power firsthand, and you get the feeling of being outclassed. Then as the adventure progresses, you become stronger and are able to stand up to them more easily, eventually making your way to the Grand Inquisitor, Mr. Cue Ball himself. You would feel that growth because the first time you encountered this goon, not only did you get squashed, but you saw how dangerous they were. It was intimidating. That would have been a good introduction for your multiple BBEGs. Now, as I said in the beginning of the video, there are loads of good ways to introduce your character. I even wanted to use Jack Sparrow's introduction because those are a terrific 80 seconds. But I ran out of room. Or time, really. Technically, I got all the room in the world. It's just a matter of getting the video done in time. So really, I encourage you to look through YouTube for other character intro breakdowns because there's plenty of them to choose from, and then see how you can implement those tips and tricks into your TTRPG sessions. Also, don't feel like every introduction has to be some masterpiece. Lord knows I've just thrown some characters in on the fly with a stupid name, assuming they even got a name. It's a game, and you're supposed to be having fun with your friends, and of course, things rarely go according to plan anyway. But if there is a character that you're specifically wanting to have an impact of certain sorts, consider his actions and what he's doing when the players find them. Consider his environment and what or who he surrounded himself with. Also, something else I think is important to remember, the shorter the better, so the players can get in and start playing and interacting with that character that you just introduced them to. The first couple reactions and responses you get from this character are going to have the most impact on how your players interpret them. That's the hardest part I find about GMing, and I know this comes from writing more than I GM. I can introduce a character in a book and not only have control of the entire scene, but I also have control of how people respond to the introduction. When you're the GM and introducing a character, you don't have any control over the player characters. The players themselves might be interested and think the character you just introduced is pretty cool, but they might feel that their character they're controlling would react completely different. And since it's a game and we're here to have fun, odds are they'll probably react in a way that isn't the most realistic or makes the most sense, but that's okay. In the first campaign I ran, I had made what I thought was a really cool character with his own small army. They showed up towards the end of the party trying to hold off a bunch of bandits and absolutely decimated the bad guys. The goal was to introduce this small army in a way that made their power level very clear, and while that part did absolutely work, the entire party absolutely hated the leader because they were a bunch of goody two-shoes and didn't think all the bandits needed to be killed. The one time I needed a bunch of murder hobos and I didn't get it. But I feel like it worked out in the long run. They hated the guy, but since they still had to work with him from time to time, it led to a lot of silly and fun interactions, which may or may not have included accidentally flooding his base. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day when it comes to TTRPGs, right? Having fun with friends. And with that all wrapped up, let's get on to the shout out and close this video out. And today's shout out goes to me. That's right, it's my turn to get up in here because this time next week it's going to be my birthday. And you know what I'm going to do? Ponder the universe and question all my life decisions. So, just another Thursday. And with that said, what are some of your pro tips for introducing characters? What are some of your favorite character introductions across movies and shows and video games? We didn't get to talk about those. What about your own TTRPG sessions? Do you have a favorite introduction you ever encountered? Was there one so bad you'll never forget it despite wanting to? Squirrel out!